Hey everyone, back again with a real quick video, and today I decided to go through some of my game collection, and I picked out some of the more unique and even rarer titles that I have, and figured, why not, let's just make a video on that. It'll give me a good reason to show these off before I get rid of some of them, and I am definitely going to be selling some in the future, so it is what it is. So I've got 3 stacks of games, each ranging from a, lower price tier, not so rare, unique, to getting more rare slash unique slash a little bit pricier. The final tier is some games that are a little more rare, and you'll see why. I wouldn't sell any of the titles in that tier for under $100 at least. So if that tells you anything, stick around and watch the end of the video. Or just skip to the end and go about your day. It's really none of my business, but thanks for being here, thanks for watching, and hit the YouTube buttons if you want to do that. First item on the agenda, Shining Resonance Refrain. Shining Resonance Refrain is an interesting little action RPG, full of dragons, interesting characters, a nice little relationship mechanic, and a musical instrument band system that adds another layer of depth to the game on top of adding music, which I thought was just a really cool little nod to anybody who's a musician like me. Very fun game. I did not get to complete it, however, I did get a copy recently on Steam, and I plan to play through it to its entirety in 60 FPS, and just not so mobily. But the game's pretty cheap and can run you about $30 or so for the Draconic Launch Edition, which includes the steelbook, slipcover, and all that good stuff. Moving on to an unexpectedly awesome visual novel, this is Our World Is Ended. This is a visual novel about a group of game developers who are developing a VR video game, and things go very south, as in end of the fucking world. Really stupid, crazy premise, but it was one of those games that's like, wow, I did not see that coming. That's pretty interesting, and you just keep rolling along with it, you know? I really enjoyed this title. There was tons of great synergy between the cast. Aside from your protagonist, there's actually quite a bit of awesome characters in this game that are just gonna crack you up at every turn. Surprisingly, I ended up finishing the Natsumi route first, because with my taste in characters, you would have assumed I would have been over here in Dixieland, but that's actually not how it shook out. And it's really cool when a game can make me, turn on normal conventions just because a character arc is so, deep and impactful to me. And that just shows the power of how awesome all of these characters interact with each other. So if you got to spare 20, 30 bucks, really cheap one, even the launch edition is not so bad, go pick it up. Next on the list, something that is actually not really rare or unique yet, but it's one that I feel that while you can pick it up for about $15, $20 right now, in the future it may command a little bit more of a price, and that is simply because the game is delisted. I am talking, of course, about Shin Megami Tensei 5 on Nintendo Switch. A game that is stupidly cheap to pick up by nowadays standards. You can just pop on eBay and get this for 20 bones. You gotta think about the logic in it. The thing is, the game is not being produced anymore thanks to SMT5 Vengeance, and this game was even delisted from the Nintendo eShop because SMT5 exists. And while the Steelbook version would probably make it worth a little more, for people who want to have a complete Nintendo Switch library physically, something that's not actually possible with the way eShop and indie titles have popped up and got out there. But if you want to get every physical release that ever popped out on the Switch, this thing might be worth a good 30, 40, 50 bucks someday. So if you got a cart, keep it. Or trade it for something cool. I'm not your dad. The last of my lower tier games as far as rarity and price goes is actually a group of titles all at once. We are going to look at the Mystery Science Adventure games, but I can't seem to find my physical case for Steins Gate, only the cart. I do have the physical cases for these two though. The first 4 games in the Mystery Science Adventure series are as follows: Chaos Head, Steins Gate, Robotics Notes, and then Chaos Child. All 4 fantastic games taking place in the same world. If you're a fan of visual novels or anime, you may have already watched anime such as Steins Gate, Robotics Notes, or either of the Chaos shows. The thing is, Chaos Head was such an awful anime. I mean, I've played a lot of visual novels that have been adapted into anime and vice versa. You know the ones. And it's actually pretty uncommon that the anime version of a visual novel sucks donkey nuts. Chaos Head is an unfortunate victim of said donkey fuckery because 12 episodes was just not enough there to convey everything that goes down in this story. It's mind-blowingly good, and if you're a fan of murder mysteries and supernatural stuff, it is going to be right up your alley. The sequel, Chaos Child, is actually how I found out about Chaos Head's existence, as well as them being connected to an anime that I had watched much earlier in my life called Steins Gate. And then I go and own all of the games, because obviously. Each of these games will probably run you about 30-40 bucks a pop, but I highly recommend getting the physical copies because of all the cool extras, like the Steelbook Launch Edition for the Chaos Head combo pack, or all the cool limited goodies that come along with it. Moving on to Tier 2, we have games that command more of a $50, $60 price point, somewhere around that angle. Upper 40s if you're lucky, but it really just depends on which edition you can find, and so on and so forth. I think I own this game on like 3 or 4 platforms now, but still have yet to play it. Eventually, I know I'm gonna play it, but it is way down my backlog. So I can't say much as far as if it's a good game or not, but if it's been constantly re-released this many times for this many years, it must be worth something. This is Alkana. This is one of those games that go for a little bit more if you have the full edition with the art book and all that good stuff. A standard copy probably run you a little bit less, but you're probably looking at about 45, 50, upper 50, depending on, when you catch this one. And you may have noticed a lot of my games are published by P-Cube. They're one of the few publishers that takes a chance on Japanese games and helps find their home here in the US. For example, there is a handful of Konosuba games that we do not have here in the West, but P-Cube, as of this year, finally brought us one. And I, for one, am glad that they did. While I can't say if the game is actually selling or if we're actually getting, any of the other Konosuba titles out, P-Cube, if you're listening, come on. People like me will buy them. We will buy them. Just want to play these games, man. But one of the coolest things about P-Cube is that they're actually based out of, if I remember right, the UK. And one of the titles at the very end of this video is one of those games, and it is a UK version. So, not to tease anymore, but stick around to find out. But I've constantly seen this game on Steam and eShop sales for, 10-ish bucks. It's probably worth it. I'm not able to tell. I hope I get to play it soon, but, low on the totem pole. This is an odd little fluctuative title as far as pricing goes, but the next game is Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of Dusk. One of the few titles that still puts little insert advertisements in their cases. I see cartridges going for about 35, 40 bucks and complete copies going for 50, 60. It really just fluctuates. Sometimes you get lucky and get the game super cheap. I found it on clearance at a game store for like 20 bucks, and it was the move. The game even has a sequel out, and I think there's one more sequel that will be coming out at some point. I think it's like a trilogy in the same universe or something or other. But it's another game I have not completed, and I hope to go down this little rabbit hole when I get the opportunity. But this is some real Etrian Odyssey shit. Like, it's one of those games that's gameplay heavy, and just, I don't have the time to invest right now. Speaking of gameplay heavy time investments, this next one is a doozy. Mary Skelter Finale. Specifically the Nintendo Switch version. I see PlayStation copies listed for as low as $18 and $20, where Switch copies I can't seem to find one at this time under $50. The Mary Skelter series has always been kind of an enigma to me because the physical copies of these games, usually, shoot up in price pretty high, with the original Mary Skelter Nightmares on the PS Vita going for at least 80 bucks, if not quite a bit more. I've seen some in the hundreds. Granted, these were sealed, but it's pretty crazy from a PlayStation Vita game. The limited edition is sitting somewhere around $400 if you want a sealed copy. And I found a pre-owned, very beat up, held together with tape PlayStation Vita limited edition sitting at $190 on Buy It Now. Like, Mary Skelter is out there when it comes to the rarity. My copy's a little extra special because I did shell out for the limited edition, which was probably the chunkiest limited edition, the heftiest video game purchase that I ever made was that bitch. And I bought the copy of Assassin's Creed 3 with that big-ass fucking statue in it, so I know something about heft. I just dug this box out of the storage over there, so it's a little dusty. Thankfully, it was on top. But this is the Mary Skelter Finale Limited Edition. Aside from some awesome art, it came with, we got a soundtrack CD, poster of the cover art, very nice steelbook, art book, all that jazz. But one of my favorite things to come with this set, and I actually can't find it over there right now, it's probably buried in some box or other. My entire anime collection is in storage except for like what you see here. And that's also why some of the stuff on the set rotates, is because I like to have different views and perspectives. You know, one day I'll remove these figures or change that wall scroll. You know, it's how I do. But this sucker came with 3 hardcover books in its own like box, like this big. There was another box, right? But 3 hardcover books in a really nice casing. A bunch of stories about the game's characters and prequel stuff and just side stories. Really awesome set of books that I haven't gone through because, man, these games take forever. But I am currently playing through Mary Skelter Nightmares on Nintendo Switch, and I hope to beat it very soon. And finally, we are going to move on to the more expensive and rarer side of the video, which is kind of what I assume people were even here to see in the first place. So without further ado, let's get to it. As of right now, I have scoured the internet trying to find a copy to buy, and while I can find the Japanese import copy just fine at around 70 to 100-ish bucks, finding this specific version of the game is not really possible from what I've seen. I've attempted to buy one as a customer, and while I'm sure that some will pop up on eBay or wherever, this is a pretty odd version of this game. As I've already said, the Japanese version commands quite a price, but I have here the Asian import, which is most likely Chinese, version of Meitetsu Pure Station. When it comes to game collecting, it's a very weird beast where a game will be $60 one minute and $2 the next. This is typical for sports games and games that are way more common and mass-produced, but for other games, not so much. This is where Meitetsu comes in because, as I've said, can't seem to find this version right now. The Japanese version already demands a pretty high price, and that's pretty crazy to me. Like, I'm just trying to figure out, you know, what it could be worth. It could be worth nothing. It could be worth $30, $40, you know, if that. It could be worth well over $100. I'm not sure. And the crazy thing is that in that climate, it just depends on what it's worth to that collector or to the community to have that game. And that's why you see scalpers and all kinds of crazy bullshit. I fucking hate people who do that. But when it comes to buying these games, all 3 of these titles that I picked up, I bought for $39.99. I don't think anyone was less than 40 bucks. After tax and shipping, I would have paid maybe 50-ish bucks for some of these, 55 at like the most. But it's nuts that all these games are commanding these prices. So, interestingly enough, if you're interested in Meitetsu, there's a version on Steam. There are versions on the eShop, the PlayStation Shop, you know, the digital ones. Getting a physical copy could cost you quite a bit, though. I would recommend just shopping around and finding that one that works for you at the price point you want to pay. But that's only if this is the kind of game you're interested in looking for. I don't do it with every visual novel, but to a lot of the ones that are just like, I don't want to see that kind of content. I mean, let's be real here, guys. I'm good. I don't need to patch the version. The All Ages version is good enough, and if you are looking for a visual novel with tragedy, comedy, really nice art, cute train girls, and of course, everything that you could ever want to know about trains ever, this is for you. This is like the train enthusiast's wet dream, sometimes quite physically. You know, maybe take a step back there. It's a super cute little novel. It can tug at your heartstrings at times. Definitely worth checking out. It has 2 seasons of a little short 5-minute anime spin-off thing, if I remember right. I never got into it, but this is a really good read through, and, you know, go get it if that's what you want to see. Or if you just like trains, I don't know. It's fucking trains, dude. Like, it's fucking trains. Really weird, interesting game there. And while we're already talking about games that are not US releases, let's mention my first PAL version game today, World End Syndrome. I've seen sealed copies of this game sell for as high as $140 and $180. Even in its current condition with the art book and the physical copy, I'd say it's worth around 80-ish bucks, but hey, it's one of those ones that I think I'm just gonna hang on to. It was a super good and super spooky VN, really suspense, horror, like trying to uncover a murderer, potentially ghost story type of situation. If you're into like Japanese folklore and curse stuff like The Grudge and things like that, definitely might be up your alley. I personally enjoyed every minute of the VN. It was one of those games that I just didn't even bother with a walkthrough, and I just played through and replayed and just sunk so much time into it. And really the saddest thing about this title is that World End Syndrome 2, I believe it was called, what is the name of that thing? World End Phenomenon, still has yet to be released. I remember coming home from a con in, I want to say it was like 2021, and they announced that World End Phenomenon was going to come out, and I was like, holy shit, we're getting a sequel. It's finally going to happen. It's 2024. Fucking radio silence. We got nothing. Even Corpse Party 2 kind of kept us in the loop before they got picked up by a bigger publisher, but we got fucking nothing. Where is World End Phenomenon? I fucking need it. But beyond that, you're gonna be shelling out about $80 to $100, maybe a little over $100 for a copy of this game if you want it on the Nintendo Switch. Obviously a region-free copy in English because of the UK. I also forgot to mention it, but that Maitetsu, whether you get the Japanese or the Asian English import version, both versions have English, so you're good with the subtitles. I really should have mentioned it, but I actually had to refilm the Maitetsu stuff. I didn't push record and completely screwed myself out of 30 minutes of content, you know, sitting here talking and recording like, oh, well, damn, I didn't push the button. Like, that's fuck. And I've deleted some of my other videos that I've recorded too. That's just, if that tells you how behind I am and how scatterbrained I can be sometimes, it's just where we're at with this. But World End Syndrome, really good. Worth the pickup entirely. Maybe pick it up on PlayStation or play it on PC, if that's even a thing. I'm not doing the research right now. I just want to get this recording over with. I got one last really cool game to show you. This is probably one of the rarest and most expensive titles in my collection. There's this Yuri visual novel called Seabed, and I think you guys might already know where I'm going with this. PlayAsia released a physical copy of this game at one point, with I think copies of the actual just cart version being like 20-30 bucks, and copies of the limited edition version, this sucker right here, for around 40 bucks. $40 gets you not just the game card, which is already rare enough to see a physical copy of this more obscure, not so popular visual novel that's been around forever on PC, but you get a set of illustrated postcards, a soundtrack, a numbered certificate, which I'm sure there's a certificate in there, but as you can see, this is number 161 out of only 2,000 copies made, and a printed manual because you need a manual to teach you how to play a visual novel. But there's a reason this is still in its packaging, and that's because I have decided that there are only 2,000 copies. Who's ever even heard of East Asia Soft beyond, you know, the visual novel community? I don't know Fruit Bat Factory either, but what I do know is that 1 in 2,000 of a physical copied game is going to be something that is quite sought after for people wanting to complete their Nintendo Switch collection, much like the Shin Megami Tensei 5 that really isn't worth dick right now. I feel like this game can only go up in value. I've seen copies sealed just like this selling for about $140, $150, and I'm not about to open it or entertain offers at this time. This is, you send me the right offer, maybe, just maybe, but this is something that is going back into the dusty box and never coming out until it's time to sell it, because damn it, guys, this is one of the rarest pieces I've ever bought, and it was just a $40 whim that ended up in almost a 2-year wait for a physical game that I'm not even going to open because I forgot I bought it. I can just play this game on my PC for next to nil, just picking it up on a sale. So I think that's the way I'm going to go about it, and I'm going to save this for one lucky collector in the future. But those were some of my rarer, harder to find, more expensive, quite possibly out of print video games from my Nintendo Switch collection. If you liked the video, do the thing, and I appreciate you guys being here. Go watch some more anime, and I'll see you in the next upload. Later.